All right, welcome back. We're here back on Chapter 1, of course, Section 1, 2, and we're going to be talking about displaying quantitative data with graphs, a variety of ones, some of which I'm sure that you've seen before, but pays certainly worth the time for us to go through and make sure that we go through those in detail. So by the end of this section, we should be able to make and interpret dot plots, stem plots, histograms of quantitative data. Identify the shape. Okay, we'll talk about that in a second. Describe the overall pattern, shape, center, and variability of a distribution. Identify any major departures, things called outliers, and we'll define that a little bit later on, but for now we'll just try to recognize what could be, and then we'll get to a definition of that. We'll compare distributions of quantitative data using those dot plots, stem plots, and histograms, so we'll compare those with one another. Okay, so let's talk about a dot plot. We saw those in the previous section. How to make it? Well, if you have, you draw a horizontal axis, a number line of sorts, and you're going to label it with quantitative data. So again, you always want to start from your minimum and go to your maximum, equal increments, of course, and then you mark a dot wherever you see that value. Okay, sometimes, there aren't any here in between, but you might have a 1.5 dot that you'll have in between the 1 and 2. You'll have to mark that up as you can see it. So from there, you can kind of see the distribution. We'll talk about how to describe that here in just a little bit. So we have that going. All right. So what are we talking about? Describing the shape. So you look up top here. If it kind of goes up, down, looks roughly symmetric. If I go right through the middle, you'll notice that it is kind of equal on both sides. Now, again, it's not always going to be perfectly symmetric, but that's why we say roughly symmetric. All right, so a lot of times it'll kind of go up and you'll see a little tail coming down here, and so we say it's skewed to the right. Okay, it's where the tail is, not where the bulk of the data. And if it's been shifted here, we say this is skewed to the left. That's where the tail is, not where the bulk. It's kind of counterintuitive, I think. Most people kind of think to go where the data is, but that's not the case. So remember that. Remember that the direction of skewness is toward the long tail, not where most of the observations are clustered. Remember that. Skewed left, skewed right, stand up, sit down, fight, fight, fight. Right, there we go. Okay, now we might say that if there's one peak, like you can see on the top here, we say that it is unimodal, meaning one modal, okay? Here it might be bimodal. You see there's kind of two peaks, one here, one here. And then if there really isn't a definitive one or two peaks, or kind of something like this, you see, we say it's approximately symmetric. Pretty much evenly distributed kind of as we go there, approximately symmetric. So use those terms, get to use those terms. So AP tests, they love to see those terms on there when you're writing those. All right, so how do you describe it? Well, in any graph, you want to look for an overall pattern for clear departures from that pattern. And you can describe the overall pattern by its shape. We talked about that, where the center is. And then the variability, that's kind of from low to high, kind of how far it's spread out. And then, of course, that departures, we talked about that outlier. If there's one that's kind of not fitting in with the rest of the data, we kind of say that that's an outlier. And again, remember, always be sure to include context when you're asked to describe a distribution. Don't just give the number. Tell what the number is. So it might be number of ice cream cones. It might be an outlier might describe, who knows, a test score or something like that. All right, so this means use the variable name, not just in the units, not just the units. Okay, so make sure you're using that. We'll show you some examples here of what we're looking at. All right, so describe the distribution here. Okay, so we have a dot plot that's been given to us, and we can kind of see that it is skewed to the, remember it's right, because that's where the tail is. And then there's a single peak here at 1. And then, yeah, we didn't talk about this, but there's a gap. We see a gap between 5 and 9. There's a big gap right there. Those are things to kind of make sure. And use these as guides to describe, to help you when you describe them. These are some good examples in the language. Pay particularly close to the language. Now, outliers, there certainly seems to be 9 and 10. Probably these two kind of stand out away from the rest of the data. I would say we'll talk about how to define that for sure later on. But for now, just try to maybe mention those. Now, the center, if we were to look at the number here, we counted out 10 in each direction. We're going to see that, yeah, we're right about 2 goals is kind of our center, kind of the median of sorts. And then the variability, hey, we've gone anywhere from 1 to 10. There's the variation that we have in between there. Now the question, of course, is, did we include context? Well, the answer there is, of course we did, silly goose. It's right there. Look at all those highlights. We talked about goals scored, the goal, games, team, goals. So, that kind of told us exactly what we're talking about. So even if someone didn't read the original description, they could kind of get an idea that goal is probably doing something with soccer or hockey or sport related anyway, is what they could decide. All right, so comparing these now. Now again, we have two dot plots that we can kind of see here. One is from South Africa, it's that we have here, and then there's another one from the UK. It's household size, how many people in the household. And again, one exam tip, and I love these. These are always nice reminders. When comparing those distributions, it's not enough to just list values for standard variability. You must explicitly compare those, saying that, okay, this one was greater than this one, or hey, there was pretty similar to, or this one was less than that one. All right, so let's take a look at this. Let's see how we would do this here. Let's use that language again. As we look at the shape, we're comparing these. Now again, as we look at the UK there, yeah, it's roughly symmetric. Yeah, a single peak right at about 4. Now South Africa, yeah, kind of looks a little skewed to the right, you know, as it kind of bulk of the data kind of tails off here. I would definitely say that with a single peak again here. They have a peak at 4 as well. And there's a kind of a clear gap between 15 and 26. Yeah, got a big gap in between there. Yeah, well, rightly so. I don't know too many households that have 26. Ay caramba. Yeah, mine's not even close to that, and that's big enough. Outliers. Clearly, it doesn't seem to be any outliers for the UK, but definitely for South Africa. I would definitely say 26s and potentially 15 as well. We could mention those kind of stand out. The center, again, as we look at those, as we count in the middle right here, we can say, now just don't list them. Now, South Africa has a median, if we did that, probably right here at 6. Whereas the UK has it at 4. So it's not enough just to say those, but compare them. Just say, you know, South Africa had a little tended to be a little higher median there at 6, a little bit more than the UK students at 4. So not just enough to list them, but say that, okay, I recognize that South Africa has a little greater median as well. Now variability, we can see here that South Africa has a lot more variability because it goes from 3 to 26, whereas the UK only goes from 2 to 6. Okay, so we can see that there's a lot more variability in South Africa. So again, good to mention that, not just the numbers, but again, describing those. All right, and again, using that context. All right, well, let's move on. We had some dot plots and some comparisons. Those same types of descriptions we can do as well with stem plots. Now again, stem plots, and sometimes referred to as stem and leaf plots, you're going to separate them into, the data is into 2 parts: a stem, which consists of all but the final digit, and then the leaf, which is the final digit. And sometimes it could be a decimal as well. But the stems are ordered from lowest to highest and arranged in a vertical column. The leaves are arranged in increasing order out from the appropriate stem. So again, what we're going to do is we're going to separate each observation into stem, consisting of all but the final digit, and leaf, the final digit. We're going to write those in. Then we're going to write them in to the right of the stem. Then we're going to arrange them in increasing order. And then we're going to provide a key. Let me show you a little visual I think makes this a little bit better. So as we take this data, the first thing we kind of look at is, yeah, the lowest we have is in the teens, and the highest we get to looks like it's in the 50s. So again, we'd start by going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, meaning 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. All right, and then what we do is I just go through the data and just jot down the numbers as they come up, and then we get that, and then just reorder them in least to greatest. Okay, so again, that way we kind of organize that a little bit. And then just remember our key here. If we have a 4 and then the line, the 9, so that means this means 49. Now we could have picked any one we wanted to. We could have used 1/3 means 13. So it's your choice, but it's just important to have that key involved with that. Okay? All right. Now, again, sometimes data values are kind of bunched up and we want to spread them out so we can get a better picture of the data. And so we call this the distribution by splitting the stems a little bit. So what we do, like you'll see here for the zeros, this means we're going to go from 0 to 4, and this is going to go 5 to 9. That's what the leaves are going to go. So this one's going to go from 10 to 14, and then 15 to 19. And so that way, it's not all bunched up. If we just went 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in this case, it would get too messy, too bunched up is what we would say. And so a lot of times we like to do a back-to-back stem and leaf plot where we put the stems down the middle, put one, in this case it's the females, and there's going to be the males there. And we kind of see that, yeah, the data is, yeah, you can kind of see that visually here, that, yeah, they are a little different. They have some uniqueness to them. They're not certainly the same in describing those. So it may help you describe the shape and distribution a little bit as we go down. So there it is with stem plots, okay? So now a histogram, it can be kind of like a dot plot, except instead of using dots, we're just going to use bars. And you can kind of see here that, okay, yeah, so this is the frequency. And again, we kind of look here between, we kind of put these together as what we would do here. from 1.5 to 1.75. So we'd kind of put those together, and then 1.75 to 2 we'd put here, and then you'd see the kind of the bar graph. So they look very similar in a ways. Now again, we could use relative frequencies where instead of the actual number here, we would definitely use percentages. We could certainly do that. And again, when you're comparing things that don't have the same amount of variables, you certainly want to use relative frequency as we go. So how do you make a histogram? So we get some data like this. All right, and you kind of look at what's the high, what's the low, and you kind of, all right, how are we going to space those out? Well, you get up to 30, I think. Yeah, what's the highest one that we have here? Yeah, it doesn't get up above 30, does it? I think, yeah, we're up there. 27.2 is probably the highest there. So again, using those, so go from 0 to anything below 5, 5 to anything below 10, and so on and so forth. And so, yeah, you want to get, 5, 6, 7. You want to get 5 of those, those little bars on there. You don't want to just have 2 or 3, I don't think. You probably want to do that. But make sure they're always equal intervals, the equal width. Okay, that's the key there. All right, and then we're going to make a table. So we're just going to go through. It's kind of nice where you just go through a lot of times. I'll just make a tally as we go and just run through the data and make those counts. And that's the relative frequency that we have. It shows the frequency here. We're going to draw a vertical and horizontal axes. We're going to label it. So again, percent of foreign-born residents. Here's the number of states that have that in that category. We're going to scale it. Obviously, we have the scale there. And again, we can always change that to percentage if we want to make it a relative frequency table or relative histogram. That kind of makes sense to you. A lot of times use that. All right, and again, it's really good. Don't confuse histograms and bar graphs. They're different. Use percents or proportions instead of counts, especially when comparing distributions with different numbers. And just because it looks nice doesn't mean it's meaningful. You got to make sure it's significant. You got to make sure it's a good display that gives you the information that you need, and you show that. Okay. So what should you be able to do? Well, make and interpret. We talked about dot plots, stem plots, histograms. We should be able to describe the shape. Remember, that could be it certainly could be symmetric, or it could be a lot of times we say roughly symmetric, and then it could be skewed left, skewed right. And describe that. Where's the center? What's the shape? We just talked about that. The variability. What's the low to high? And if there's any outliers, and then compare those distributions. You should be able to compare them. And again, always use context when you're describing those types of things. All right. Well, there we go. That's section 1.3. All right. Get working on those assignments. And until next time, I'm Mr. Boone.